In other news, we have a major hedge fund that has advised Intel to outsource their CPU manufacturing. And can I just take a moment before we go through this to say this is why I have never been willing to take any investment in Linus Media Group. And this story is exactly why I am so
that makes a lot of sense.
why I'm so glad
Really
to not have any kind of external investment. I'm not saying Intel doesn't need to change things. Intel absolutely needs to make changes. But to have people come in and think that just because they have a lot of money to buy my shares or invest in my company or whatever the case may be means that they have the requisite knowledge to tell me how to spend it is just, I find it offensive. And, you know, maybe there's even some kernels of truth in here. Like I said, haven't read through it yet, but just the idea of someone coming in and telling me, you know, no, we can't pay that person that much, or, you know, instead of investing in Creator Warehouse and merch, you need to invest in doing, you know, more fully sponsored videos for brands that force you to say things that you don't believe in. You know, because I can tell you guys, if I wanted to make a lot more money, there are a ton of brand deals that I could do that pay really well.
Just really slimy,
but
and they reduce your principles and the core idea of your operation.
But are just gross. Like there's some categories that we haven't and will never touch. And it's not for lack of sometimes bidding wars to get us to, you know, whether it's, you know, I'm not going to name anyone. It's just not constructive, but we won't do it. So hedge fund Third Point has taken a $1 billion stake in Intel, that's with a B, and has called the chipmaker to consider shedding its manufacturing operations. Their CEO wrote Intel a letter with a number of demands for Intel chairman Omar Ishrak. This is great. This is in quotes. We cannot fathom how the boards who presided over Intel's decline could have permitted management to fritter away the company's leading market position, Loeb wrote to Intel chairman
Without
Omar Ishrak.
Anything more, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Stakeholders will no longer tolerate such apparent abdications of duty.
Ooh.
Can I just take a moment and say, Daniel, dude, kind of a douche. Can I just, like, who talks like that? Like, what is wrong with you? Okay, hold on. It goes on, though. The loss of manufacturing leadership and other missteps have allowed several semiconductor competitors to leverage TSMC's and Samsung's process technology prowess and gain significant market share at Intel's expense, Loeb wrote. So here's the thing. Everything that Mr. Expert Daniel Loeb wrote in this letter is something that, like, he could have known, like, watching a video on Gamers Nexus. You know, like, it's not even Gamers Nexus. No, never mind. You don't have to watch Steve. You don't have to sit through Steve's boring droning on forever in order to get this kind of information. I'm trying to think of something more mainstream, like, you know, Gizmodo. Okay. Like what? What's his name? Daniel reads an article on Gizmodo and, like, suddenly he's an expert on, like,
if he scrolled his phone on Reddit technology for like an hour one morning, he would have been able to write this strongly worded letter.
Okay, so
I don't disagree with him. It's not necessarily a highbrow take.
So in the past year, in fairness, Intel has lost $60 billion in market value.
Brutal.
The hedge fund said it was particularly concerned at the loss of talent at Intel, saying the company had lost many of its best chip designers, while the ones that remained are becoming increasingly demoralized. This is actually something that I have heard through the grapevine about what's going on at Intel. And I mean, it's not like we didn't see that complacency 5-6 years ago. We watched it happen. We watched them go from, hey, we need to push the limits, to, hey, we need to, I don't know, not really bother because we need to cut costs so we can just make more money because we don't have any freaking competition. So that's a good point. it should be noted that even if Intel was to outsource their chips, they don't need to be completely fabless like AMD does. Almost a quarter of Intel's wafers are currently being outsourced, so they could potentially leverage TSMC to restore the competitiveness of their chips while still making lower tier processors in-house. But honestly, I don't think that's going to fly, and I think we already kind of know TSMC's take on that. If I recall correctly, they actually did comment on it publicly, although it might have been industry scuttlebutt. Either way, it sounds credible enough. I think they basically said, look, Intel is a fab company. We're not going to build out capacity to serve their needs, knowing that this is not a long-term partnership in the way that AMD or NVIDIA would be. So too bad. Intel, you like making CPUs, then make CPUs. You don't like making CPUs, stop making CPUs. I think if I'm TSMC, I'm kind of all or nothing, because I've got customers coming out my butt at this point. Apple, AMD, NVIDIA, to name a few. I mean, NVIDIA went Samsung this time around, but it's not like they're never going to work with TSMC again. I'd be shocked. So Intel responded. This is great. Intel welcomes input from all investors regarding enhanced shareholder value. In that spirit, we look forward to engaging with Third Point on their ideas towards that goal. It's just like these are not ideas. Saying, hey, you need to keep shrinking CPUs. Do you honestly think there's no one at Intel who knows that? Like, yes, they made some mistakes, but the mistakes that they made, and this, I don't know if this is a fundamental misunderstanding of like how CPU design and manufacturing works. If Intel doesn't have a competitive product today, that means they made a mistake 6 years ago. Like, they know they are in deep hot water right now. There is no way that they're not trying to fix these problems. So coming in, buying a big stake in the company and being like, you guys should make CPUs with like less nanometers. We heard nanometers are bad. So you need as few nanometers as possible. I don't know, it's just kind of silly to me. So I guess Third Point's never going to invest in my business now that I was rude to Mr. Loeb, but that's okay because I don't want investment in my business, so I think it's fine. People on the internet aren't convinced. TLDR, hedge fund wants to loot Intel, destroying its future competitiveness in exchange for massive payoff now. Yeah, that's not a bad take.
That could make sense.
Here's another good take. Intel will right its ship given a chance. Why can't these parasites wait 1 to 3 years? Oh, man.
Well, that is the take of this is why Linus doesn't want outside investment.
Yeah. Does gutting national tech competency and capacity just to avoid a short-term dip in profit sound like a good idea to anyone but a filthy capitalist? I added the word filthy. These investors buying $1 billion of Intel so they can tell Intel what to do, that's some serious cash. But based on today's market cap, that's about 0.5% of Intel that they control. So unless they can persuade some other real investors, there's no way this is going anywhere. Oof. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it's not like I don't think Intel needs to change things. They absolutely do. I mean, one of the things that is so telling to me, okay? You look at companies that are just killing it right now in the semiconductor space. AMD CEO. What's AMD CEO's background? Luke, can you recall off the top of your head?
It's not business, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what it is.
Dr. Lisa Su is an engineer.
Yeah, but I didn't remember of exactly
NVIDIA. What background does their CEO have again? Is it in finance? Does he have an MBA?
I don't believe so.
Engineer. So to me, it's one of those things where it's like it's a tough decision to make, but I think that you need to
electrical engineering for Dr. Su.
You need to put engineers back in charge of Intel, because business people are great at maximizing profits, but that's a short-term thing. If you want great products, which is ultimately how you make a profit, then you need to put smart people who actually know how the products are built in charge. You need to put people who know what the products are for in charge. And well, good luck, Intel. I mean, I'm rooting for you, because you see what happened. The second AMD didn't have a competitor, they increased the price of their entire lineup by $50. It's not like AMD's like the good guy. It's not like their reason for existing is to save you a buck. AMD is out to make money, just like Intel. Surprise, surprise. So we need both of them competitive. Now, with that said, I think Intel could stand to be humbled for a couple of years. That would be a good experience for them. I think they could stand to really lose some big market share.
And hopefully something that they would like define in their history as a reason to not do certain things in the future.
Exactly. Like something they are not going to freaking forget. But I don't know. I don't know if I can count on that.